Hi everyone. Today I am going to explain about architectures. I am discussing three types of the architectures today. First one is monolithic architecture. Next one, service-oriented architecture. After you can microservice architecture. Why we have three types of architecture? Why we are using this type of the architecture? Which one is most comfortable to develop to implement projects? The best approach to develop Java based application microservice architecture. This is the best approach to implement Java projects. Why we don't want to use these two types of architecture means I can explain each every each architecture. You may get clear understanding. Monolithic architecture means it can have one container like monolithic application container. Within one container itself it has all type of business logics, data access members, all type of the interfaces, and then only one database is have. You are creating multiple services within one container. It's very difficult to maintain, it's very difficult to manage memory, and then very difficult for you to give. If you get so many errors, it's very difficult to resolve. That's why you don't use monolithic application. I can explain it diagrammatical format also. Just wait for few more minutes. Okay, next you can use a service oriented architecture. Within service oriented architecture, within client app we have one service. Within one service we have a three service independent service we have. That means I can give you an example. We are implementing one basic medical web application. Within one web application we have these services like book appointment particular doctor, either particular patients or recovery forms. This type of the services we have. Within one services was within one service itself we are implementing three business logics. We can reuse the three business logics whenever we need it, and then it has only one database. It don't have multiple database. That is one type of the drawback. Okay, this is one type. And the next one is as a microservice architecture. Within microservice architecture, this is a API gateway. Okay, application programming interface gateway. Within every service they have then more database. It won't depend on another database. Okay, this is one type. Why we need each service, each database? Why don't we use all the services with one database? I can explain it within 2 minutes. Okay, this is general three architectures. I'm going to explain it. I can explain it in diagrammatical format. You may get clear understanding. Okay, okay, just wait a minute. I can remove the older code. Here we have one container. Okay, okay, okay. This is monolithic architecture container. Within this container we have one service. Okay, we have this is student service, this is teacher service, this is address service. Okay, three types of services we have. Okay, first one is student service. Next one, teacher service, address service. We have three services. Within these services, you have written in one container. You are written in one container with three services. You can just imagine you have only one student service. This one student service running on port 8080. The student service running on port number 8080. It can take 4 seconds to complete the to run the application. It may connect to the database also. It's very easy. It can maintain. It's very easy to write the one service class, uh, 3 to 2 types of the business logics in one service. You can run in one application. It may be it's very useful for you to run. But here I am using teacher service class as well as address service class. Someone have 10 services class. He try to running in one application. What will happen? It's very difficult to maintain. For example, say one service class take 4 seconds to run. You are implementing 10 10 services. You can assume it will take more time consume. It will take more memory. It can very difficult to maintain. For example, we are implementing three services. you would, when we run the application we get an error. It's a very difficult to manage those things. Not only that, when uh, after everything was completed, product owner came to us. He asked about, I want to build two more APIs in your service. Okay, he asked, I want to build one more service, two more APIs. This is a teacher two. Okay, you can assume like it's a teacher two service. Teacher two service. These all three services was already running background. Few of them student was using the services, try to manage. They are doing their own work in college. But but our product owner give a task to us, add one more teacher to our service class. We try to implementing this teacher to service inside monolithic container. It need to be stop the entire container to implement teachers too. That means it's waste of time to stopping the application for one services class. Okay, one services class. It's a very bad way to do the implementation. Now we can see this one database have four services. Four service data must be stored in the one database. Any type of the implementation you want to do, you should have to stop the server and you can implement. So for example, you are creating one web service. Within the web service, you are implemented already four services. So product owner given some new services to implement it. We should have to stop the old three services and then wait for to complete the fourth one, and then we can deploy it to the server. Then only you can possible to re-up the server and to run the all the this container. This is a waste of time. We are waiting for the fourth services to run the remaining all four services. That's why this is not a good approach to implement big applications like a big type of the business logic related implementations. We don't approach a monolithic container architecture. Okay, next one I'm going to explain SOA, service oriented architecture. Why we using service oriented architecture? Not only that, in this monolithic architecture, this is a tight coupling. Again, I'm writing something here. Just you can see. One is a tight coupling. That means it cannot interact with, like it cannot possible to communicate with, either it cannot connect with new frameworks. It's a very difficult. It would take more time to run, run the project. We cannot manage cannot manage memory management, cannot manage memory memory management. We cannot manage the memory management. Not only three things, we cannot identify choose, very difficult to maintain. That's why no one is approach monolithic related application. You want to approach monolithic application, you can go ahead, but you don't write more services. You can try to implement only two services. You can use two services and then implement, but it cannot communicate with another frameworks. Okay, second architecture is service oriented architecture. Why we need this service oriented architecture? First, I am using my main service. My main service name is medical service. In my medical service, I have appointment on service. Next one, doctor availability, tablets price. Within one service itself, we have three services. One service possible to communicate with three services. He can share his medical service code can possible to share the each services. Okay, it's service one, service two, service three. These are the three services, but the main drawback is three services have only one container. Three services have one database. This is nothing but service oriented container. The main thing, each services have independently work. You don't want to depend on other services. It can possible to work each services its own. Not only that, so it's loose coupling. That means this service oriented architecture can communicate with another frameworks like Kubernetes, the another type of the containers, either message brokers like Kafka, and then you can possibly connect with many containers. There are like many frameworks, and then you can reuse those implementation within this service. But it's a very difficult to maintain. That means it's very expensive to implement all those related things in one in service oriented container. SOA is a loose coupling, but it cannot use form XML related. It can use XML maintenance. XML maintenance. You can use a JSON form. You can use a JSON format. Either you can use XML. I already told you, and then either you can use a text format also. It may help you. This is the things generally. The main drawback here, one services is communicating with three services. This is the way you can implementing the project. It is very difficult to maintain all these services, and you can run the services also maybe difficult for understanding. That's why this is also approach is not good, but few of them was not implementing this project. Like we want to use as a GPS. In the GPS also they are implementing the SOE for security related purpose, and then it's a very cost efficiency. Coming to the monolithic application, either compare with microservice architecture, it, it's very difficult to maintain. It's a very too expensive to maintain these services. So many companies they cannot afford to maintain these services. So they can go with microservices. Microservices is very easy approach to maintain and manage scalability, reliability, understandability, and you can possible to communicate with third party related frameworks, and then you can use separate different ports. It's very easy. We will see. I'm reviewing this service and try to start with microservices. Microservices container. Sorry. This is a one. I'm creating microservices. Okay. This is your microservices. Within microservices, we have a four services. We have this is one service, service one, service two, service three, service four. Each service, each each service, they have their own database. You can see now here Service one have one D database one on the port number 8081. Second services have database two on the their port number 8082. Service number three, they have their own database DB3 8080 port number three. That means in microservices, you have each services they have their own database. They don't want to communicate with another services. They cannot communicate with S1 service, they not communicate with S2 service. S2 service, they not communicate with S3 service. They don't have to communicate with another databases. Why? Because they have their own database, they have their own port number, they have their own business logics was implemented inside their services to run it separately. Why means you are implementing thousand services it within one monolithic application. Is it possible to implement it? Either within in thousand application in thousand services you are getting one error. It is you should have to stop all those services, and then you have to execution of the one service itself you can possible to run the whole application. It's a very big loss. Either company using that type of the implementation in their production or in their management. So there nowadays everyone looking up to build enterprise applications using microservices. You already understand why they are using, what is the main use. Not only it's very loose coupling, that means it can possible to communicate with another frameworks like Kafka. This is like a message broker. That means you want to monitoring the data, you can use it as a Kubernetes. Whenever you are hitting any type of URL like slash umc slash add method, when you hit this URI, your whatever implementation you have done using this URL, it will generate like it will display the. For example, you want to implement logs in your project, you are using logs and you can check the data as same as you can use as a containerization as a Kubernetes, whatever. When you hitting this URL inside the SQL, sorry, inside the Chrome, whatever type of the message you are getting in logs, that same message was appeared in Kubernetes itself. It was not part of the today's section course, but I'm just trying to explain why we are implementing the microservice. What are the benefits we have we have to do with microservices? This is a very easy approach to compare with the remaining architectures. It's very easy. We don't want to spend any money to maintain these services. It's free of cost. Anyone can implement their own logics and they can deploy into their own servers, and then they can use it normally without spending any money. It's very easy. This is generally. And then these are the three things I want to explain today section. But I want to explain how Spring can work before implementing the Spring Spring Boot is nothing but Spring extension is nothing Spring Boot. That means in JDBC, in servlets, in Spring, we have to implement all those related getters and setters, toasting methods, any types of the related methods we have to implement it within the projects itself, but manually. So that means explicitly. But in microservices directly we can use annotations. The annotations like getters for setters to edit your data, to string methods to return the values This is the way you can use this type of the annotations and you can implement the project implementers without taking any difficulty. That's why in every developer in every company they are to looking to implement a microservice related implementation. It's very easy to maintain. That's why they are using like this. Now we can explain to before you building the Spring Boot application, what you should have to know, and then how to implement those things. I can explain now. First, you should have to know core Java. After learning core Java, you have to know JSP, JDBC, servlets. First, should have to know Java servlet page, JDBC, Java database connector to communicate with database, JDBC, servlet. Okay. And then to communicating with Spring Boot application, should have to know Hibernate relations. Should have Hibernate relations like one to many, many to one. These are types of the annotation should have to know what is the use of this. And then using to learn Spring and we can implement Spring Boot application. These are the steps you should have to know before implementing this Spring Boot application. First, you should have to know core Java. That means oops concepts, collections, exception handling, all those things you should have to know. And then JSP, Java servlet page, JDBC, Java database connections, this servlets, already servlet is the JSP. You get all those related information. And then Hibernate relation like ORM, object relational mapping, and then you can go with Spring and you can implement Spring Boot application after knowing what is the use of the Spring. Spring Boot is nothing but a Spring extension is nothing but a Spring Boot. It's a creative way for us to here I can explain few things. This is nothing but roadmap.sh. Yeah, whoever want to be a backend developer, you should have to know these things properly. Then only you can possible to be a Java developer. So first Java, learn the fundamentals. Then basic syntax, data type and variables, conditions for functions, working with data on time, loops and exceptions. You may have to know basic understanding of the data structures. Remaining three you should have to know properly. Oops, interfaces, classes, packages, working with the files and APIs. Next, getting into deeper, you should have to be know generics. Generics is a very useful concept. Generics means you are returning string or inter boolean anything you are returning, but you can take generics. Any type of the data type it can take, it can return the values based on the your implementation. It can work. Streams is a very good topic. Streams means whatever data we have, like you're using or collection of the data, you want to sort the data. You're using the stream without creating any new methods. Directly we can sort the data. Collection frameworks. You can use the memory management, garbage collections, basics of the threads, JVM with workflow. Should have to know threads by because sometimes we want to make payments, either we want to send the request to 1000 members, 1000 members want to access at the same time. You can use these threads. Threads can be manageable 100 seconds at the same time without waiting for to complete the request. And then I am using Maven. You based on your interest, you can use Gradle or Ant. Web frameworks like you don't want to know all those things, but you should have to be know Spring and Spring Boot. That's fine. You can, I already told you Hibernate means ORM. ORM is the method object relational mapping, orientation relational mapping, Spring Data JPI to communicate with the database, JDBC. So JDBC or JDBC templates. You want to display the logs, you should have to log4j2. Logging frameworks like SLF4j, you can use this annotation in your Spring Boot application. You can use logs and display it on Notepad. And then mocking nothing but whatever implementation, whatever business logic you have done in your Spring Boot, those things you should have to explain or implement in JUnit test cases with proper explanation, like JUnit testing assurance. JUnit is very interesting one. Remaining you can ignore it. You don't know that. You should have. You don't want to learn these things. That's fine. Coming to the backend roadmap. Mhm. In the internet, use of the internet, you have to be know what is HTTP. HTTP stands for Hypertext Transfer Protocol to communicating with web. What is the meaning of domain? What is the meaning of the hosting? What is DNS? You can search and you can learn. It's easy for you. You can use any type of the language to implement backend development. I am using Java. Git first to storing the all the data whatever you have implemented, that can be stored in repository that won't be deleted. Okay, so we're using you can use as a GitLab or Git for version control system, repo hosting services in a relational database. You can use as a cloud. I'm using as a Git bucket to store the all the related data. Either I have my laptop was crashed, the data won't be deleted in the whatever implementation I have done, and I push to the cloud, that would be stayed itself. Okay, that's the purpose we can using as a Git and Git bucket. Post is SQL. You should have to know any one type of the SQL. You should have to be learn to check whether the data is properly working, showing or not. That purpose. This is server sites, client sites. You can learn about APIs like JWT, OAuth means these are the authentication. That means you are implementing one application like bank related application. You cannot give access to the all the members who directly joined it in application. You should have to get credentials from the um, bank. You cannot directly initiate his own personal data in that particular application. So we need this type of the authentication. Those members can access those accounts. All the members cannot access all the members account. Those who have access availability, those who can access the learn JSON, SOAP, graphical QI means some type too easily to understand the tool. The rest JSON. JSON is used to test the JSON Java object inside the JSON tool. It's very easy. That is not the graph UI. graphical interface. Web security as SHA security by encrypted MD5 testing like unit test cases. CI/CD means current integration, current deployment. More about database, ORM transactions normalization. You can use HTTPS cross SLTLS means you need to get certification from SLTLS. This your certification. Your website is our website is don't have any unknown things not deployed in project like that. Now we can see I'm clicking on it. This thing. We don't get any error marks here. That means this is a SSL TLS. Certified is available. When you clicking on it, can use SHA-256 fingerprints. This is the type of the authentication. Here is displaying the validate period. For 2050 it validated. It can work this on this date. RSA, Amazon RS. This is also one type of the access related core. These are all things comes to the details part. This one would be useful for you. I already told you last time is you can use Dockers or Kubernetes, Nginx like images to customize and visualization the data. Either can we want to monitor the data, we can use these things. Use message brokers as a RabbitQ. I already told you Kafka to communicating with all the services. Graphical QL, MongoDB as a NodeBS without database we can use you can check the data within the web itself. First you should have to be learn after completion of everything these all the things you want to develop to full stack developer you can go through the full stack. You should have to check which type of the technologies you want to learn to become a full stack developer. Okay, I think you guys are all understand what I'm saying, what I try to explain in this today's section. You know my voice little bit lower and then I will try to explain it better in the further sections. So thank you. I think everyone understand properly. Should have to learn properly what is the meaning of the monolithic application, service oriented architecture, microservice architecture. You can go through the three types of the architecture. What is the pros and cons? You can check it out once. You may get clear understanding. Thank you. Thank you for the section.